Donny Osmond married his wife in secret in 1978. He hid it for 4 years because he knew what would happen. And he was right. The day fans found out, they burned his records in the streets. His wife received death threats in the mail. His own father told him his career was over. And it was. Donny didn't chart again for 10 years. But the hate mail wasn't the worst part. What happened to her during those years is something Donny still refuses to talk about. Today, after 46 years together, she stays hidden. And now, we finally know why. Donny Osmond was born on December 9, 1957, the seventh of 9 children in Ogden, Utah. His father, George, wore many hats to keep the family going. He worked as a postmaster, sold insurance, dabbled in real estate, and helped run a dairy farm with his brothers. His mother, Olive, managed the house and the kids. Both were committed Mormons, and their faith shaped everything they did. They had met during the war at Defense Depot, Ogden, and married in 1944. Their religious values emphasized discipline, unity, and faith, and these beliefs would hold the family together during both their rise to fame and their later financial problems. Music was always playing in the house. From the time he could walk, Donny watched and mimicked his older brothers as they rehearsed barbershop harmonies. His mother quickly noticed that her youngest sons, especially Donny, could match pitch effortlessly even as toddlers. Olive came up with a way to teach all the kids music without spending much money. Each child would learn one instrument and then teach it to the others. That way, musical knowledge spread across the family like a shared language. Donny's talent stood out early. His voice was clear, sharp, and full of life. His mother, described by some as a sharp business mind, encouraged him to take the stage alongside his brothers when he was just 5. But the musical journey of the Osmond family actually started with difficulty. The first 2 sons, Verl and Tom, were born with severe hearing loss. Doctors told the parents to stop having children and even suggested placing the boys in an institution. But George and Olive refused. They kept going, and the next 7 children were born with normal hearing. The brothers initially started singing to raise money for their older brother's hearing aids. What began as a necessity soon turned into a career. Despite their disabilities, Verl and Tom later served as the first deaf missionaries for the Mormon Church, inspiring many. Life wasn't easy in those early days. Money was tight, and the family had to stretch every dollar. George worked multiple jobs, and Olive homeschooled all 9 children through correspondence courses. They didn't have many luxuries, but they had a system. The kids taught each other music to avoid costly lessons, and everyone helped keep the household running. That strong work ethic, born from poverty, helped them later on when they hit a financial crisis in the late 1970s and had to tour aggressively to pay off their debts. Donny made his first professional TV appearance the day after his 6th birthday, performing "You Are My Sunshine" on The Andy Williams Show. His hip-swinging version of the song made the audience go wild. The family had recently moved from Ogden to Los Angeles after the older brothers impressed Walt Disney during a Disneyland performance and landed a contract for weekly appearances on the show. Marie and Jimmy Osmond would later follow Donny onto the screen, turning the whole family into national figures. In reality, Donny had already auditioned a year earlier in 1962 when he was 5. He showed up with a small guitar and sang, "Elvis is everybody's favorite," and everyone in the room could see something special. He wasn't nervous, even though he'd never had professional training. They started earning $750 per episode, a huge help for a family of 9 kids. His older brothers had been performing at Disneyland since 1959, but Donny brought a spark that changed everything. The show reached 30 million viewers every Saturday night, launching the Osmonds into national fame almost overnight. In 1965, the Osmond brothers signed with MGM Records, but their barbershop sound wasn't what teenagers wanted to hear. Producer Mike Curb urged them to shift toward pop music. Donnie's high-pitched voice became their secret weapon. Their first single didn't do well, peaking at only number 96. But they didn't give up. Donnie recorded vocals at 3 a.m. because studio time was cheaper then, and his father wanted to save money. Sometimes he fell asleep on the studio floor between takes. MGM still believed in them and invested $50,000 over 2 years to help shape their sound. A rare move for a group that hadn't yet charted big. By 1967, people were comparing Donnie to Michael Jackson. Donnie was 9, Michael was 8. Donnie wore rhinestone jumpsuits and spun across stages like a mini Elvis. He became so good that professional choreographers took note. But just when they thought Disney would give them their own family show, they were rejected for being too clean-cut. That letter stung for years. Their Mormon values and wholesome image, once seen as boring, would later become their biggest asset during their 1970s peak. In 1968, the Osmonds got their shot in Las Vegas as Jerry Lewis's opening act. But the crowd didn't care for a squeaky clean family band. The audience was rough, loud, drunk, not what 10-year-old Donnie was used to. He was heckled and even had ice cubes thrown at him. George responded by making rehearsals even more intense. 12 hours a day, only stopping for bathroom breaks. Donnie's feet would bleed from dancing. It nearly broke his spirit, but it hardened his work ethic. In early 1969, they recorded in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, home to legendary soul records. Producer Rick Hall tried to push them into R&B, thinking their image needed an edge. Donnie, just 11, amazed the session players. But when lyrics hinted at rebellion, George Osmond shut the session down and walked out. That $15,000 recording was never released. It delayed their success, but the family stood by their religious principles. Then came the breakthrough. One Bad Apple was released in late 1970, and by February 1971, it was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 5 weeks. Many people mistook the Osmonds for the Jackson 5. In fact, Michael Jackson once told Donnie that they nearly recorded the song first. That single went gold and set off full-blown Osmond Mania. In 1973, 10,000 fans packed the Heathrow Airport rooftop just to see them, and a balcony collapsed, injuring 18 girls. Airports started banning their chartered flights because of the damage caused by stampeding fans. But all that fame came at a cost. From 1971 to 1972, the group performed nearly 200 shows a year. Donnie collapsed from exhaustion at age 14. Their father called it character building. Even when Donnie had surgery for his appendix, he spent recovery reading thousands of fan letters. They were also recording a cartoon series during this time, providing their own voices while still keeping up with concerts and television appearances. That pace led to Donnie's struggles with anxiety and a nervous breakdown later in life. In 1972, their cartoon show aired on ABC with 17 episodes. Unlike the Jackson 5's cartoon, the Osmonds voiced their own characters. They included a talking dog and world tours in every episode. Despite the show's popularity and record sales topping 100 million worldwide, financial mismanagement nearly ruined them. They lost about $80 million due to poor investments and bad advice. George Osmond eventually filed for bankruptcy. The massive studio they built in Orem, Utah for the Donnie and Marie show only added to the money troubles. While their fame continued, the danger increased. Fans regularly broke through security. In Manchester, one fan hugged Donnie so hard that the pen in her hand nearly took out his eye. Another time, a flashbulb camera burned his retina. In a hotel parking garage, a security guard threw Donny into a mob of fans twice, not recognizing him because of his long hair. These moments made Donny question if fame was worth the risk. Later that same year, the group released Crazy Horses, a rock song with a message about environmental pollution. It shocked their conservative fans. The track charted high in Europe, but got banned in South Africa and France due to misinterpretations of the lyrics. Their clean image didn't align with heavy guitars and politically tinged messages. Some fans burned their records. Yet rock legends like Ozzy Osbourne praised the track, calling it one of his favorites. It became Alan Osmond's favorite song to perform. Donny Osmond was just 13 when his voice hit the airwaves with a song that didn't even sound like it should belong to someone his age. Sweet and Innocent climbed to number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 on June 5, 1971, and before summer ended, it was already certified gold with over 1 million records shipped. That wasn't just a hit, it was the beginning of a spotlight that never dimmed, only burned brighter and hotter. Producer Rick Hall had chosen that exact song because it let Donny play to a specific crowd, a crowd within the crowd, kids who looked up to him, and adults who found it catchy. But the irony of a 13-year-old singing about passing on a girl for being too innocent didn't go unnoticed. It crossed over to easy listening charts and became his signature. But beneath the pop stardom was something else: pressure. Donny later admitted that around the same time, at just 12, he started feeling anxiety. Not the kind you talk about freely, the kind that creeps in backstage between screaming fans and photo ops and makes you wonder if this is all too much, too fast. Only a few months later, in September 1971, the heat turned into fire. Go Away Little Girl shot straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 3 weeks. Donny had now done something only a handful of kids could dream of. He'd become one of the youngest male solo artists to top the charts. The song had already been a hit in 1963, but this time it was Donny's voice that made it happen again. That was a record in itself. Same song, different artist, both hitting number 1. But success didn't come with applause from everyone. He later recalled how older musicians backstage would snicker, mocking him as a manufactured puppet, questioning if he even deserved to be there. That sort of thing sticks, especially when you're still trying to figure out who you are. By the time 1972 rolled around, Donny had released Puppy Love, a cover of Paul Anka's original. It peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 by April, hit number 1 in Canada for 2 weeks, and ruled the UK charts for nearly a month. Certified gold by March 24th and ranking number 67 for the year, it was another smash. But this one came with a moment that still haunted him years later. Mid-performance, somewhere in the middle of a stadium drowned in screams, he blanked. Forgot the lyrics. Couldn't remember a word. He'd only sung it a few times in studio, and now thousands of people were waiting for every line. So he just made it up. The crowd didn't notice. They were too loud to hear the lyrics anyway. But he did. He carried that terror with him. Then came 1973. Donny was still churning out hits like Too Young and Why. But things were changing. He auditioned for Gene Kelly, yes, the Gene Kelly, for a movie role. He was told to perform Shuffle Off to Buffalo, a dance move he had no clue how to do. He messed it up. Kelly wasn't impressed, rejected, just like that. It hit harder than expected. Donny had been performing since he was 5, already had number 1 records, and yet here he was, not good enough. So he rebelled, quietly but clearly. He dyed his hair blonde. A small act, but for someone with an image so tightly controlled, it was huge. He wanted to prove he was more than the squeaky clean kid everyone expected. By 1975, the cracks were widening. His song Hey Girl reached number 9, but the fame was becoming suffocating. On a European tour, things turned dangerous. Fans weren't just screaming, they were threatening. Death threats started coming in. Donny had to be driven in armored cars. The Beatlemania-level hysteria wasn't fun anymore. It was frightening. That year, he had his first therapy session. He was only 17, but the signs had been there since 11. It all came to a breaking point after a surgery to remove his appendix. He woke up in a hospital bed, barely out of anesthesia, only to find a Tiger Beat photographer pointing a camera at him and asking him to pose in pain. And he did. Because that's what was expected. In 1976, ABC saw potential in the Osmonds' sibling chemistry. Donny was 18, Marie was 16, and they became the youngest entertainers in TV history to host their own variety show. It was called Donny and Marie, and it took off like wildfire. Marie had already hit number 1 on the country charts at 13 with Paper Roses. But the success wasn't all glitter. Behind the scenes, a producer warned Marie that if she didn't drop 10 pounds, the whole show would be canceled. She went from 110 to 93 pounds, barely staying awake during grueling 18-hour days filled with costume changes, rehearsals, tutoring, and live tapings. The pressure didn't just affect her. Both siblings struggled, even as they sang their iconic duet about being a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll. The show pulled in 14 million weekly viewers at its peak and ranked 27th in its first season. But variety shows were expensive. The sets, choreography, musical numbers, it all added up. Ratings dipped from 19.3 in 1977 to 16.3 in 1979, and ABC pulled the plug by May of that year. Around the same time, Donny had been hiding something for nearly 4 years. In 1978, he married Debbie Glenn in secret, fearing the fan reaction. They'd been together since he was 16. Debbie had actually been dating his brother Jay when Donny realized he was in love with her. The announcement set off a firestorm. Fans burned his records. Debbie got hate mail and threats. Even Donny's father warned him, "There goes your career." And it did. Donny wouldn't chart again for 10 years. The years that followed were brutal. Donny's 1982 album, All New Donny, failed to chart. And around the same time, the Osmond family lost an estimated $80 to $100 million due to disastrous business decisions and embezzlement by trusted advisors. Several of them ended up in prison. George Osmond had tried to secure the family's future with real estate investments, and those properties were the only thing preventing total bankruptcy. By 1983, the family's fortune was gone. George refused to declare bankruptcy, insisting they pay every debt in full. The family sold off assets and started over from scratch. At the same time, Donny became a father, welcoming his first son, Donald Clark Osmond Jr. in 1979. The responsibilities of parenthood collided with the grind of touring and public life. Hollywood doors slammed shut as casting directors dismissed him as too Mormon. He even lost out on the lead in Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. His management team pushed him to fake a drug scandal to shed his clean-cut image, but he refused. Marie also turned down a $5 million offer from Playboy. As the industry shifted toward edgier stars, Donny was branded washed up before his 26th birthday. By 1984, the fall from fame reached rock bottom. Once-packed arenas were replaced by half-empty high school gyms. Donny spiraled into depression, and doctors prescribed medication to keep him afloat. He admitted that by 1982, he no longer wanted to be Donny Osmond, because Donny Osmond wasn't working for anyone. Still, he hid his pain from Debbie to protect their family. panic attacks struck before shows, leaving him convinced he was going to die when he stepped on stage. Public humiliation and the industry's cruelty deepened his despair. The crisis worsened by the late 1980s. Donny turned down roles on shows like Miami Vice to protect his faith, shrinking his career options further. By 1987, he was so desperate that he considered leaving entertainment to start a security company. There was a time when I was forced to think about changing jobs because nothing was working, he admitted in 1988. He sold personal belongings, including his prized Porsche, just to pay bills. Record labels wouldn't sign him. I lost everything in the 80s and almost had to declare bankruptcy, he said later. The decade felt endless, but a new opportunity on Broadway in the 1990s would eventually save him. Even in later years, the scars of fame lingered. After the Donny and Marie talk show ended in 2000, Donny hosted the game show Pyramid, filming 315 episodes between 2002 and 2004. A Daytime Emmy nomination couldn't mask his torment. Diagnosed with social anxiety disorder in 1996, Donny often faced crippling panic before stepping on stage. There are times I remember before I walked on stage, where if I had the choice of walking on stage or dying, I would have chosen death, he confessed. Marie later said she had seen signs of his struggle even during their 1970s heyday, but assumed he was simply overworked. A comeback attempt in 1989 with the album Eyes Don't Lie, produced with Peter Gabriel, briefly revived his music career. The single Soldier of Love hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 after being released as a mystery singer. But the album ultimately flopped, and the pressure to reinvent himself triggered a breakdown. Before one performance, Donny trashed his dressing room in a panic. Debbie stepped in and told him to stop aiming for perfection and just do an average performance. That advice changed everything, helping him realize he didn't have to be flawless. The financial wounds of the 1980s never fully healed. The family lost between $80 and $100 million, including their homes and private jets, and barely avoided bankruptcy through real estate sales. Yet Jimmy Osmond later said the ordeal was the best thing that ever happened, because it taught them humility and discipline with money. Not every project in the new century worked out. In 2007, Donny hosted the Great American Dream Vote, a reality show where contestants vied for their lifelong goals. Despite premiering after Dancing with the Stars, the debut drew only 5.9 million viewers and finished third in its time slot. The second episode collapsed to 4.5 million viewers, finishing fifth. ABC canceled the series after just 2 episodes. The ratings disaster echoed his late 1970s fall, and Donny admitted he still hated the puppy love image that had typecast him for decades. His mental health reached its lowest point in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He cycled through 5 psychiatrists and took medication for depression. When he first auditioned for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in 1992 and was rejected, the blow was crushing. He eventually won the role, but the stress triggered terrifying panic attacks, including one that left him unable to get out of bed. Debbie rushed him to the hospital, fearing a breakdown. He admitted to having suicidal thoughts during this period and called the musical his lifeline. Therapist Geraldine Ross diagnosed him with social anxiety disorder and taught him to play with the fear rather than run from it, a lesson that saved his life and allowed him to keep performing. In June 1992, Donny Osmond stepped on stage as Joseph in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at Toronto's Elgin Theatre. What started there became one of the most important runs of his career. Over the next 5 years, he played the role more than 1,800 times across North America. He finally said goodbye to the part on May 25, 1997, with his last show filled with balloons, confetti, and streamers. Before that, the production even made it to Broadway in November 1993, opening at the Minskoff Theater and staying there until May 1994 with 231 performances. But performing 8 shows a week wasn't easy. The strain on his voice was real. His performance of Close Every Door became famous, especially because he added a powerful high note that composer Andrew Lloyd Webber didn't ask for, but ended up loving. 3 years into his run, a special version of Joseph was filmed for television in Toronto. By then, Donny had fine-tuned every moment of his performance. The Pharaoh was played by Johnny Seaton, whose Elvis-style version of Song of the King lit up the stage. That filmed production showed just how much detail went into the staging, choreography, and music. Years later, in 2024, Donny came back to the same story, but this time as the Pharaoh, during a UK tour stop in Edinburgh. After more than 2,000 performances as Joseph, the switch felt like coming full circle. In 1998, Donny reunited with his sister for the Donnie and Marie daytime talk show. It aired in syndication starting that September, with a live band and celebrity interviews. Dick Clark was one of the executive producers. The show ran for 2 seasons, and even though it got Emmy nominations in both 2000 and 2001, it couldn't compete with giants like Oprah. In the end, low ratings led to its cancellation in May 2000. Donny was in 33 of the 42 episodes, Marie in 34. There were creative differences behind the scenes, but they kept things polished on screen. That chapter closed the door on their 1990s TV run, although they'd be back together later for something much bigger. Also in 1998, Donny became the singing voice of Captain Li Shang in Disney's Mulan. B.D. Wong did the speaking voice, but Disney chose Donny because his singing matched Wong's tone. What's ironic is that just a year earlier, Donny had been rejected for Hercules for sounding too old and too deep, which almost made him quit music. For Mulan, he gave it everything. While recording I'll Make a Man Out of You, he even punched himself in the stomach to make the performance feel real. The song became a hit, landing at number 18 on Entertainment Weekly's list of Disney's best songs. Years later, his grandkids told him it was the coolest thing he'd ever done, and that made the whole journey worth it. Between 2002 and 2004, Donny hosted the game show Pyramid. He got a Daytime Emmy nomination in 2003, going up against names like Bob Barker and Alex Trebek. The show aired on KCL-TV in Los Angeles and brought a fresh twist to the old format with notebook computers and flashy set design. The LA Times called Donny genial and said he had that classic Dick Clark charm. While the exact stories about paparazzi harassment during that time can't be confirmed, those years were part of a growing concern around celebrity privacy, especially for their kids. Through it all, Donny kept his family life out of the spotlight. In 2008, Donnie and Marie launched what was supposed to be a 6-week show at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. Instead, it lasted 11 years, with exactly 1,330 performances before ending on November 16, 2019. It was a massive hit. In 2012 alone, they won 3 Best of Las Vegas awards. In 2014, the Flamingo renamed the venue to the Donnie and Marie Showroom. A lawsuit in 2010 revealed they were each earning $1.6 million per year, plus 40% of ticket sales over $250,000. Front row tickets were going for $4,000, and even the cheapest balcony seats were $600 by the end. The show had become one of the Strip's most successful runs. In 2015, Donnie and Marie received the Pop Culture Award at the TV Land Awards in Beverly Hills. It was a high point, but not everything behind the scenes was going smoothly. On December 27, 2018, Their brother Jimmy suffered a serious stroke during a live performance of Peter Pan in the UK. He finished the show and even signed autographs before going to the hospital. The stroke ended his performing career. Their brother Merrill later said Jimmy wouldn't be returning to the stage. Donny launched his own solo residency at Harrah's Las Vegas in August 2021. It was his return to the Strip after the Flamingo era ended. One of the unique parts of the show was a digital duet with a version of himself at age 14, thanks to new video technology. The show kept getting extended, with tickets available through at least May 2026. The pandemic had hit Vegas hard, but Donny's solo show began after things had settled down. People returned, and the show kept evolving. In late 2024, Donny stepped into the Pharaoh role again for a short UK tour of Joseph, performing in Edinburgh from December 3rd to 29. He split the role with Joe McElderry for other cities. The last time he toured in the UK before that was in 2017, when he performed a sold-out arena tour to celebrate 60 years in the industry. That final show was filmed in HD for PBS and tied in with the release of his 60th album. When the pandemic began in early 2020, the entertainment world came to a halt. Theaters closed, concerts were canceled, and artists had to find new ways to stay connected with fans. Donny's residency had just ended, so he didn't have to cancel performances. But like everyone else, he leaned more on social media, especially Instagram, where he had around 464,000 followers, to stay visible. Virtual shows became normal for many artists during that time. In 2019, Donny competed as the Peacock on The Masked Singer and came in second place. He lost to T-Pain, who was dressed as the Monster. Gladys Knight came in third as the Bee. The costumes were heavy and hard to breathe in. Marie accidentally spoiled his participation before the finale aired, but fans still loved the surprise. His final performance was a nod to his musical theater days, and the show helped him connect with a younger audience. In 2021, he released a new album called Start Again. It surprised a lot of people. Neyo wrote one of the songs, Life After Loneliness, and there were rumors about Steve Aoki creating EDM remixes of Puppy Love, although those weren't confirmed. The album mixed his classic sound with modern R&B. He was 63 when it came out, and was still pushing boundaries in his music, showing fans that he wasn't done growing. His Las Vegas show kept getting new dates. By 2023, it was extended through 2025, with new shows announced for 2026. But in August 2015, long before the residency, he had undergone surgery to remove a hemorrhagic polyp on his vocal cords. Dr. Steven Zeitels in Boston performed the operation. Donny had to remain completely silent for 3 weeks afterward, so his vocal cords could heal. The show now includes advanced tech like a 3D AI version of young Donny performing Puppy Love, using audio from over 50 years ago. Donny has also spoken openly about his mental health. He was diagnosed with social anxiety in 1996, but the signs had started much earlier. By the time he was 12, he felt the pressure of fame. And it got worse when his Broadway show, Little Johnny Jones, closed after just one performance in 1982. He got help through cognitive behavioral therapy from Dr. Geraldine Ross, who taught him to give his anxiety a name and shape so he could control it. He's been on the board of the Anxiety Disorders Association of America since 2004, and often speaks about the importance of getting help. He credits his wife, Debbie, whom he married in 1978, for helping him through his darkest moments. They've been together for more than 44 years, and she's been a steady presence through every up and down.